Awesome. So Brianna's from Arizona. That's great. Hopefully you were able to get the password okay and the user information, the login information. Anyone else willing to share their location? Well, oh, there we go. Arizona too. Great. Awesome. And Phoenix. Great. Thank you guys. All right. So moving right along, we're going to share our screen to show you the presentation that we have planned for each of you today. And you'll also get a copy of this afterward. So as most of you know, dealing with co-parenting can sometimes have its own challenges. And things usually tend to go pretty well. And then when there's a new partner that your co-parent might have or wanting to start introducing to the children, things can start to go a little awry. So tonight's topic will be dealing with co-parents that have new partners. Here's a relationship timeline that is sometimes, not always, but usually the way things go. Introductions of new partners are usually made. Then there's a honeymoon phase where things seem to go pretty well with the children, with you, the other co-parent. But then as things progress, you start seeing a little bit of favoritism among the children. If there are biological children and sometimes stepchildren in the mix, or if they're not married, then just the other children of that other parent. Then sometimes we see parental alienation. Then we have to deal with boundaries. And if we cannot deal with our own boundaries, then we have to figure out how best we can navigate that new territory moving forward. So have any of you dealt right now with some of these issues or matters along this timeline? And if so, please, we welcome that in the chat. Yep, big yes. It's not working. Oh, goodness. We're trying to move this along, but the way we have our, it's not quite working to, I don't know why it's not working. There we go. Okay, thanks, guys. We have a little technological glitches here and there. So when introductions are made, you or your co-parent may have decided to be in a long-term committed relationship. Now, I say that because when introducing children to a new partner, after the original relationship has ended and you're thinking about introducing your children to another new partner, whether you or your co-parent, sometimes you have different values with respect to that. Some people say introducing children right away to this new partner is best because then it avoids getting close to someone and then your children might not like them or your new partner might not like your kids. Most people, however, want to wait. And most people wait until there is a more serious committed relationship between you or your co-parent and the new partner. Sometimes in judgments of divorce or judgments of custody, once the custody battle has ended, there are terms or provisions in that agreement that call for a time delay, 6 months, anything that you and your now co-parent have agreed to relative to introducing your children to a new person. I often see in my practice that 6 months tends to be the normal period, but some people don't want to agree to anything. Some people are already with somebody when that other relationship has ended. So it's really a myriad of factors that go into it. But whatever it is, make sure for the betterment and the benefit of the children that you realize that it's not a small thing to do. Children take things like this pretty seriously, and you should too. So when introducing a new person into the mix, make sure you do so in a healthy way and your children are really understanding what's going on based upon their age and their level of maturity. So it's also best that you do so with your co-parents' blessing. If it's you introducing your children, or if it's your co-parent here, we're talking tonight about our co-parent's new partner. So keeping that same theme in line, when your co-parent wants to introduce their new partner to your children, hopefully they've talked with you about it. You've gotten the respect from them that you deserve, and that the two of you can do so perhaps together with that new person. But we have different ways of doing this. So we ask you to talk to your children and reassure them that the other parent is not being replaced. Depending on the age of the children, it can be sometimes a little difficult to understand, but also that new person also has to respect your role as their parent. So making sure that the name that they ask your children to call them is respectful to you. So you also want to keep it positive and realistic at the same time. Take things very slowly, meet in a small group or one-on-one, and don't pressure the kids. Sometimes it's almost easier when it's less formal and there's a little more activity, or it's a large group setting. Now that we're entering into the summer months here in Michigan, although I know out west in Arizona, it's usually nice weather all year round, but you can do things outside, maybe a large, gathering, a picnic, a barbecue, something that's a little less strict and less stringent, so that the children can roam around the yard or feel free to be outside with their friends and have it a little more casual. I find that's the best setting when introducing that third party. But also understand that the children may feel a little confused or threatened if the breakup of their parents was not as amiable or amicable, and there was a lot of tension and strife. The children still feel it. And when introducing that other party into the mix, they can often feel very confused. So make sure you do so, keeping a very sympathetic and empathetic bend to your conversation and to the timing of it and how you go about doing it. Timing is super important. So always make sure your children feel safe and heard. And when they're around that new person, make sure the new person is also very sympathetic and empathetic to the dynamics, depending on how the two of you and your co-parent ended things and where you are in the co-parenting journey at this time. So the beginning of every introduction of a new person into the mix always has a honeymoon phase, just like relationships, any relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or friendship, familial relationship, or even this new relationship. It's the early stage where everything seems carefree and happy. Things are going well. You maybe appreciate the fact that your children have more people to love them. Hopefully that's how you see it. But sometimes you don't see the red flags when things are going maybe too well. The new partner can show intense care and concern. They may want to meet with you. They want to feel, excited. They may make you feel happy that someone else is in the mix, or you have someone else to communicate with. Maybe your current co-partner isn't as, available to you, and their new partner is. And so you feel like you're going to have even better communication and better handling of your children's needs. Everyone's getting along, everyone's excited. But then some things start to kind of seep through the cracks. The new partner starts taking on a more active parental role, and issues start arising regarding values, perhaps disciplining, priorities, habits, etc. So things are starting to maybe, normalize a little bit, and you start to get a little concerned. So my team and I have come up with some role plays, some examples that we thought might help you to better understand some of what we're discussing today. So I really want you to feel like you can share and chat, and if you want to talk, let's talk about this, because now this is the part in that timeline where the first maybe seemingly innocent things happen, but your intuition is telling you that this could really be an issue. So let's give you a little hypothetical. So we've come up with some names. Mary is mom, Brad is dad, Amy is the daughter of Mary and Brad, and Kendra is the new co-parent who is now living with Brad. So Mary and Brad split up and have been successfully co-parenting for about a year. Brad has found a new love interest in Kendra and has talked to Mary about introducing her to the family. Now, I do want to say that this is extremely respectful, and both co-parents should be on the same page when it comes to the time to introduce the new partner, if it's someone new. Hopefully it's someone new and not someone that has already been introduced. And if someone has already been introduced, well, then that water's already under the bridge and you can't really do much about it. But moving forward, you can certainly ask your co-parent to be more respectful of you and your child or children, and to talk these things through with you moving forward. So when Mary and Brad talked, they came up with a plan for Mary and their daughter Amy to meet Kendra all together in a big group. Kendra initially seemed super interested in ensuring Amy's comfort and also in ensuring Mary's comfort as the mom. So Mary didn't notice any red flags. However, 6 months later, while Amy, their daughter, was at Brad's house during midwinter break, Kendra, who is really the primary caregiver when Brad's working, punishes Amy for the first time for not doing a school assignment and disciplines by prohibiting Amy from the use of her cell phone for a whole week. Now remember, Amy is 14. So Mary is worried because she has not heard from Amy. That's their means of communication, her cell phone, and finally reaches her daughter through Brad. Amy expresses her frustration that she's been grounded and hasn't been able to call. The more they talk, Mary, the mom, discovers that Kendra grounded Amy, disciplined Amy, because she refused to complete the schoolwork for one of Kendra's children. And the assignment was not actually Amy's assignment. When Mary talks to Brad about the conversation with Amy, Brad says he doesn't know anything about the situation because Kendra was watching the kids that night. But he is sure it's not true. Of course, he takes Kendra, his new partner's side. To add to Mary's frustration, she has been paying for Amy's phone and phone service. This is not something that Brad helps with. She was also never consulted with this choice of disciplining. What would you do? Now, I'd like to open up the chat to see if any of you would like to raise your hand or talk and let us know how you would handle it.
Looks like Brianna has some good feedback. Brianna, do you want to maybe unmute yourself and talk to Sabrina and let her know what you would do?
Sure. So I was kind of venting a little bit about my own stuff. I can still answer this. So, yeah, I kind of followed that first and then wrote my own situation. So I'm sorry. Can you tell me the exact?
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. Because our time is a little limited tonight,
Yeah.
but it was just about how the disciplining that Kendra did wasn't really comporting with how Mary would have chosen to do it. She restricted her cell phone, and the cell phone is something that Mary pays for.
Right, for
And
mother and child, right?
yeah, and for them to
So-
communicate.
And now, so that female is the father's significant other or new wife, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that is very much, I have had that issue myself, even though they don't let my daughter call me whenever she wants. She doesn't have a phone. It's always scheduled and it's always monitored, which I need to get changed in the order. It's very terrible. So in this case, I really think father needs to step in as he is the primary custodial parent. I don't know how much rights a significant other or even a new stepmother have in something like this. And father really, really, and maybe I'm wrong, needs to step in and they need to discuss who makes these decisions. Because in my situation, stepmom has totally taken over. Dad wants her to. He's like, get this off my hands. I don't want to deal with, mom. Just do it. But if it's contentious between stepmom and or girlfriend and mother, well, then that poses a huge issue for me.
Well, that's interesting you raise that. So what you would do is you would talk to Brad, the dad, and to insist that this has to stop.
Or that we all come together, or that will you please make some boundaries
Yeah.
with your significant other. And in my case, like when this happened, they were like, you're overreacting. This is the new mom. You're gonna have to deal with it. So I just broke down and turned to a puddle and didn't know really what to do or what I could do legally in the situation.
Well, Brianna, everything you just suggested is actually what we would recommend. And boundaries is something that is extremely important, and we're gonna get into that. If I can change this next slide. I don't know why this is not working tonight.
Sam's gonna click that.
Can you click it? There we go. So, Brianna, that was a great answer. It's always extremely important to communicate with your ex-partner or the co-parent. Especially at the very first sign of any impropriety or any type of favoritism or any type of behavior exhibiting values that you do not approve of, that is not your parenting style, because the only two people that should be in charge of what type of disciplining measures are to be done are the parents. Now, it's extremely important to, and we'll get in this a little bit later down in our presentation, but it's extremely important to discuss with the co-parent how you should discipline your children. And then it is also important for that new party involved to respect what you've also put in place. So they can't come up with their own rules if you and the co-parent did not approve of them.
And what
And-
if they do or do not care or totally disregard you, and then father lets it just slide by because he doesn't want to deal with it?
Well, that's when you need to get the courts involved, because the courts disfavor a third party taking priority or precedence or instilling their own values over the values of the parents. So, and in most situations, when there is a new person involved, and if it's a, like you said, a dad who, is working or willingly wants that other new person to take over because they just kind of want to let their, hands be done with it because they're just overwhelmed, then that's really when you need to take action. And we have some steps that we want to provide you with in our suggestions that can be done, and those will be down further in the presentation. But here's some other.
Wonderful, thank you.
Oh, of course. Thank you for participating. Favoritism can be a problem in blended families, similar to disciplining or measures that you don't approve of. But favoritism is especially prominent when there are biological children of that new partner and your children in the mix. I don't necessarily want to say stepchildren because I want to be respectful of those families that aren't married, but typically, essentially, de facto stepchildren with biological children moving in together with the parents not treating everyone equally and with the same type of disciplining styles and the same type of values instilled for all of them. So sometimes it can look like having stricter ideals for the co-parents' children, meaning holding them to higher standards, or using your children as a standard, like, well, my son can do this, why aren't you doing that? Or, things like that. Being more present or available for their own children than those of your children, praising only their children, not the co-parents' children, not fostering siblings' relationships. So it can be very, very stressful and filled with anxiety for your children in those situations because they feel it. Things don't have to be spoken in order to be felt. So it's extremely important that you have open communication with your children to know how they're feeling. And if they shut down, then you need to find different ways to talk with them. But it can be revealed in ways like gift giving, disciplining, like we talked about, spending time, or forgiving their children over your children, favoring their activities over your children's activities. I see it a lot with spending money, or allowing, extracurricular activities to be done by the stepchildren and not your children. There are a lot of different privileges that are shown, that show impropriety or favoritism. So to avoid all of this buildup of tension and anxiety in your children and in you, you need to really communicate openly and honestly among all the parents and partners. You need to modify your responses and expectations for each of your children, depending on how they are affected by it. And, if they're going to be giving gifts, then make sure it's appropriate for each child. Because as much as you need and want to treat or need to treat the children equally, sometimes you need to treat them individually when it's dealing with their emotions, especially in something like this. So be very careful not to allow any type of favoritism. But then if there is favoritism shown, make sure you're addressing it individually based on your own children's needs. Does that make sense? I hope so. If it doesn't, please ask a question in the chat. I
have my hand raised. I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. I didn't see it. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So I have stepmom has a child that's autistic, high functioning. Well, my daughter's come home a lot in the last 3 years, and it's a lot of comparisons. Not so much anymore because she just kind of has to swallow it. And I haven't been able to show that I have any power at all. And so when you say, make sure or talk to the other parent, I mean, he just dismisses everything I have to say. And even, other stepbrothers, grandma will give him special gifts, and she's come to me crying, like, how come she didn't give it to me either?
How old is your daughter?
She's 11 now, almost 12. And he's 11 as well.
Okay.
And so, and then also, like, I even see family pictures like on social media, and they're all about the new baby who's also autistic, her stepbrother who's autistic. So dad is always with all of them, and she's like on the side. She's just on the side. And it makes me very sad because they limit my time as much as possible. And she really needs that second parent to really be more involved with how much favoritism and how much special needs are going on in the family.
Well, have you tried communicating with an app like Our Family Wizard or something that is a little more monitored?
I proposed it to the attorney and him and have refused any kind of response.
You might, you've been apart for a while now, right? Was the judgment a long time?
I see her 4 times a month.
No, I mean, the father. When was the final custodial judgment entered?
The newest one is 4 months ago. The first one was in 2013. So we separated when she was 1 year old.
Okay.
And she's 11 now. And we keep going back to court.
Well, we can have a separate consultation after this to really address your specific needs because
Love to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important that we address your individual concerns, but sometimes strict measures have to be taken, and that is having to go back to court. Never be afraid to assert your power, especially when your children's well-being is at stake. There is There is
Mm.
nothing more important than putting your children first, and every motivation, everything that you do should be for the betterment of your children and in their best interest. So anytime you're questioning an action, anytime you're not sure what to do, to turn right or left, or to say this or not say this, you should always ask first, is this in my child's best interest? And if you can honestly say yes, then do it. Do not let fear hold you back from doing what is in their best interest.
And I
Sometimes,
have,
sometimes, I'm not just talking to you, Brianna, I'm talking to the whole group.
Mhm.
Sometimes it means taking a step back and taking an inventory of where you are, and then truly looking within and saying, okay, do I need to bow out here? Or is this truly something that I need to move forward with? And the only way you can truly know that answer is when you ask the question first, is this in their best interest? Period. So in dealing with parental alienation, courts frown upon this very, very, very much. So if you can prove that this is going on, and when I say prove it, I mean keep a journal, do everything you can to have those tangible, factual scenarios to be able to express to a lawyer that will help you navigate any type of concern that you have with respect to alienation. Because as children get older, they become smarter and they understand things so much better, and they will understand what their parent did to alienate the other parent. So if you think you're winning favor right now when they're younger, because you or your co-parent or whomever is alienating that child, I can guarantee you that the child will figure it out in time. They always say that cream rises, the truth always comes out, and it does. Eventually, children will know, and it might take a very, very long time, but if and when they have their own children, they will remember things that went on, and they will understand you and have a little more sympathy to the parent who was in fact alienated by either the co-parent or that new partner. So if you hear of things like disparagement or bad mouthing, or the new parent or the new partner is confiding negative information about you to the child, or expressing through words and actions to the child that you don't love them, or even discussing the court case in front of them, these are all things of concern that you should really address with the co-parent. And if that doesn't get you anywhere, then you really need to speak with an attorney before too much time goes by and too much damage is done. Because if you start seeing signs exhibited in your child, when they come back to you, there's always that little re-entry period when a child returns home, and that child has to adjust a little bit to you, to their home, to their surroundings. And sometimes that adjustment period takes longer and longer and longer, or they express more disdain for you, or they suddenly refuse time with you, or they badmouth you, or they're talking to their friends in a negative tone about you, or they're just generally testy in a way that you have never seen before. And it's not just the teenage hormones or things like that. These are things that you really have to address head on, because you do not want to let too much time go by. So I want to continue with our same set of characters with another example. So Mary did in fact speak with Amy and Brad, something that Brianna suggested to do, and they did become more receptive initially. So initially everything seemed okay again. So Amy seemed okay. Mary, the mom, seemed okay. But then parenting time continued on for a few more weeks at Brad's house with Kendra and Kendra's children. Amy comes home one day to her mom, Mary, saying that Mary, her mom, isn't a good mom because she's the one who caused her dad to leave the family, and it was all her fault. Amy has never expressed anything like this before, and Mary suspects Kendra has been feeding her this negative information. Mary becomes very concerned, rightfully so, with these untrue words in this narrative, especially when faced with Amy's new confrontational and blaming attitude. Mary also starts noticing that Amy is becoming testy, withdrawn, and generally unpleasant to be around when returning from her father's house. Mary has tried repeatedly to communicate her concerns with Brad, but he brushes her off, saying he and Kendra are fully aware how to co-parent and basically dismisses her outright. Would anyone else like to share how they would like to handle it, how you would like to handle it? No? No takers this time? Okay, well, how we would handle it is basically to start having boundaries. And this is what Brianna was talking about earlier. So establishing clear boundaries is extremely important. And this was on our first slide or second slide regarding the timeline of things. Boundaries is really something that needs to be done, that need to be set. And both parents need to take an active role in establishing what those boundaries look like. This will help defend your parenting choices, help you find the strength and the vocabulary to really communicate your values through boundaries. So you communicate your concerns directly with the co-parent, including concerns regarding their new partner as it pertains to how they are parenting your children. But, and all courts agree to this, you and your co-parent together should be responsible for setting the rules for your children, regardless of who enforces the rules, which means that Kendra, our lady in the example, can help to enforce the rules, but the only people that should be the ones figuring out or establishing what those rules are, what those disciplining measures are, what those boundaries are you two parents. Not anyone else, not a grandparent, not an aunt, not a cousin, not a friend of a friend or a friend of the new partner or a sister of the new partner, but the two of you. So if, however, there is an emergency situation and the two parents cannot get along or they're not there, and when the two parents aren't there and there's an emergency situation, then of course you need to step in and take care of business. But in general, in the most simplistic of terms, the two parents really need to be the ones to set the discipline, and then everyone else follows their rules. They have to be respectful of their rules. So there's no room for confusion or any overreaction. So these rules also have to be expressed to the children. Children are known for testing boundaries. They know how to push your buttons. They know how to get away with something. They know how to pit one parent against another, especially when they're in two different houses. So it is extremely important, especially in two separate household situations, that the parents are aligned. If you have difficulty trying to get on the same page with that co-parent, then try to discuss these things through technology like our Family Wizard or other apps, which makes communication much less hostile, more transparent, more agreeable. And so if that co-parent is not amenable to any type of app like that, and there is this little bit of adversarial type of situation, then you may have to go to court and you may have to try to urge the court or the family court or the friend of the court to help you in this way. Because if the other co-parent isn't respectful of you, well, then they're crossing your boundaries, which you should have also. Because again, your motivation is to set very specific boundaries and disciplining styles for both households. That causes much less confusion for the children. And it's a much easier way to raise your children when in two separate households. Now, granted, that's an idealistic way and a version, and it's an idealistic view to be able to say, yes, we have similar disciplining styles and similar values in both homes. But it really is for the betterment and the benefit of your children. Does anybody have any questions about that? Brianna, is that your question?
She was talking about her co-parent, who states that he is not willing to co-parent. And he states that what is going on in his home and how he parents is none of her business. So on top of that, the co-parent and, you know, their attorney have refused to agree to using an app like our Family Wizard.
Well, in that instance, then you need to file a motion. If you share custody, if you share legal custody and physical custody, then you definitely have every right to have a co-parent that communicates and respects you. If they are not willing to do so, then you may ask to seek for sole custody. Now, there are two types of custody in Michigan. We have physical and legal. So in Arizona, if you have specific questions relating to that, I highly recommend you contact Genesis and you let us help you walk through this difficult time.
Sabrina, I do have one more question for you. As it relates to what you were just talking about with Brianna, is it a co-parent's business that's going on in the other home? How do we navigate that? The hard one.
It is a very hard one because that is the attitude of many people. So when it comes to co-parenting in general, sometimes the co-parent wants to keep things more private and more protective of their homestead, their home, their own new family unit. However, when it comes to that child, and if there are things such as homework, education that needs to come first, if there is a different bedtime, that's one thing. But if they are not taking that child to the proper medical treatment or counselor or their extracurricular activities, and that needs to be done, or if the children are acting out and then it's really hurting the child in the long run, then a very strong argument can be made that both parents have to be involved. Now, I understand the dad's desire to keep his relationship with Kendra private. In our example, we have Kendra as the new partner. However, when it comes to the child, we don't care what's happening between the two of them. We care what's happening with our child. So if there is ever a doubt or an issue as it relates to your child or children, then absolutely that is your business. Did I answer that question?
It's perfect, thank you.
Does anyone else have a question as it relates to that? Good. I think we're good. So how do we do that? How do we navigate these intrusive behaviors? Even though we try our best to establish these strong boundaries for ourselves and our children, it doesn't mean our co-parents or their partners will respect them. So, as we were talking about earlier in the slides, if you suspect any favoritism, any manipulation, and sometimes this manipulation is not always overt, sometimes it can be very covert or hidden, and especially when it comes to children don't always pick up on these things right away. But if you suspect any of this, disparagement, isolation, disciplining in ways that you disagree with, or deceit, overstepping, try these tactics. Try establishing a safe space for your children, to talk to them, to be there for them. And sometimes kids don't want to talk, but sometimes just being there will help them feel safe and secure. And if they're safe and secure in your home, well, then they will be more likely to open up, to allow you access, if you will, to what's going on that is negatively impacting them in that co-parent's home. So try to listen without prejudice. don't pry, don't offer, don't, ask them leading questions. That's not really favorable, that's not looked upon favorably. Asking leading questions or trying to get them to open up if they don't want to. Redirect negativity, remain calm, but always make them feel heard and validated. No matter what age your children are, they always need to feel that love and that security. And like I said earlier, sometimes that feeling of security comes with your just being present. It doesn't mean, spending all this money on them or doing elaborate things. Sometimes it's just that potted plant theory. Just be in that room, be home when they're home, be present for them and with them, and they will start feeling safer and they will start trusting more to be able to open up more. And as children get older, they will definitely let their priorities be known. And if they feel safe with you, their priority will to be with you. So if this new environment in which they find themselves, because not of their own choosing, that it's because their other co-parent now has a partner and they're not being treated as well as they should be, eventually that will come out and eventually that will be known. And rest assured, if you handle it well and delicately enough and soon enough, they should not have too many emotional scars that will trouble them or damage them in the long run. And many scientific studies show that if the children have one solid parent on which to rely, it doesn't matter what's going on in that other house, as long as they feel safe and secure and loved with you, then that should be enough to help them navigate a healthy childhood into adulthood. So we have one more set of our little summary here, a little story. So given the behaviors that Amy has developed due to Kendra's intrusiveness and inappropriate behavior, Mary continues trying to discuss her concerns with Brad. Mary attempts to communicate these clear boundaries about consistent disciplining and rules for Amy to no avail. They aren't listening, they don't care. But Mary starts standing up to Brad regarding her concerns about Amy's behavior and does come up with a plan to combat the emotions that Amy is now facing due to Kendra and her new step siblings. Despite all of this, Brad continues to take Kendra's side. And he's also, by doing this, just so you know, he's also not only disrespecting you, but he truly is disrespecting their child. Because if he avoids addressing these concerns, and even if he doesn't really think or want to respect Mary, he should take the time to see for himself or to speak with Amy about it. And you should let that be known. Because it's one thing to disrespect you, it's another to disrespect your child. And that child is half of him. So shame on him for doing what he's doing at this point. Mary is growing very concerned that Brad is becoming an absent parent because he lets Kendra watch Amy all the time and does not have Amy's best interests in mind. And furthermore, Amy's behaviors are becoming much worse. She's skipping school. She will not leave her bed. She's becoming depressed. Her grades are plummeting. And her concerns for her daughter's emotional and mental stability and well-being have truly escalated. So if you're like Mary and you've exhausted all of these tools that you have and everything that you could possibly think of, and you're still not sure what to do, then please call us at Genesis, because we have the attorneys and the specialized legal partners and attorneys and paralegals to help you navigate through this. And we really truly want to see you, not only you thrive, but your children thrive, because our children are our next generation and we really need to protect them. And we're really doing this for them. So if there's anything that you need at any time, please call us at any time. And again, a consultation for those in attendance tonight, this afternoon and this evening, it's free to you. It's a complimentary consultation and we'll give you a code for that. But at this point, we really want to open this up and try to help as many of you with any questions top of mind that any of these summaries or examples elicited. So please, with that, we have a little bit more time. And I'm really hoping to answer 1 or 2 questions in the remaining time we have.
I have a question. So the next question states, are there really options for kids to use to live with a parent who they want to?
As the children get older, and in some situations and in some courts with some judges, and even in the same county, different judges have different rules with respect to this. Yes, and to answer your question, yes. From a pragmatic standpoint, it's much more difficult to force a 15-year-old strong young man to go to his dad's house. It's hard for you to pick him up and carry him. And it is much more difficult to do that. Now, this being said, if you have a very, very contentious custody battle and you will be sanctioned or you will be in trouble for not abiding by those court's orders, then you do everything you can to get your child over there. This also has a caveat though, because if you know that your son or daughter is emotionally impacted in a negative way, psychologically, mentally, physically, any way that they are in harm by being at that co-parent's home, whether it's with the co-parent or with that new partner, if you suspect any type of abuse in any manner, then you definitely need to hire a lawyer and get that custody changed, because it's imperative that you protect your child. So different judges have different rules relative to that. But I do know in Michigan, there are a number of judges that do allow the child, the older they get, to have more of a voice. I know in California, I know Arizona, New York, Illinois, many states do allow that, but that does have a caveat, and you have to be very careful and mindful with what your judgment says and how much pushback you're going to get from the other parent. You really have to have a lot of good evidence from keeping that child from that other parent. So I don't like to give a blanket statement when it comes to that, but typically, yes, the older the child gets, the cutoff age is usually 18. So as they get closer and closer to 18, they become much more independent. And then as soon as they have a license and can drive or have their own car, things drastically change.
Up next, Johnny, if you would like to unmute your microphone, you can go ahead and talk about your scenario.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in Arizona. Yeah, my ex got remarried 5 years ago. They've been dating for about 7 years, and I have tried to have a relationship with her new husband, but she has told me that he would rather not talk to me than go to prison for assault, is what she's told me. This was years ago, though, like a while ago. And then we've been having issues with child support and our parenting plan, and we went to mediation. It was probably about 2 years ago. And again, I tried to talk to them when we left mediation, because he was there, even though he wasn't allowed in. She wanted him to come in and he wanted to come in, but they wouldn't let him. And so I tried to go out and talk to them. And again, he kind of got in my face and said, no one wants to talk, and get the F out of here. And, since then we've went to court since February. So everything's settled. Child support is settled. I even had to pay a little bit of their attorney fees, and I'm trying to just be the adult and have a good relationship, but I'm currently blocked. I can't text her, can't call her. All we have is email. But basically I've tried multiple times to say, I want to have a decent co-parenting relationship with both of you. I've offered, let's go to lunch, let's go get some coffee, just whatever it is, just any way to just have a positive relationship, even as minimal as it could be. And I just get left with no responses. So
Did you address this in your last mediation?
No,
I know you said you dealt with the money issues, but did you deal with these issues?
no, I had a very horrible attorney, not through you guys. And they put in our court documents that all we needed to talk about was child support and attorney fees. So they basically handcuffed us in court to where that's all we could talk about, even though this was a 2.5 year litigation. And that's
you-
all we were able to talk about. And so now it's in stone for the next 2 years and I can't do anything.
So you have, your children are what, 16, your child?
He's 11, just one
11.
child.
When you said 2 years, why for the next 2 years?
That's what the court order said is we can't modify the parent. Well, yeah, we can't modify it for at least a year, and the child support for 2 years is what it said.
Well, I think it would behoove you to call us at Genesis and we can look at that and see what exactly the issue in that order says that you cannot bring up in 2 years, because if it is about money or it is about parenting time, that's very different from dealing with the communication. Because I don't care which state you're in, if you can't effectively communicate with the co-parent, how can you communicate about medical issues or legal issues of your children or educational issues of your children or child? So if you cannot effectively co-parent, then one of you has to seek sole legal custody. So my recommendation is you should be keeping a journal for every time that they block you out or don't allow you to communicate about medical or educational or anything that has to do with that child's legal aspects of their life, or emergencies or anything. But also, if you do have legal custody, your responsibility also is to that child. You can go to the school, you can go to the doctors, you can find out as much information regardless of whether they're communicating with you or not, right? So I don't know what your order says. I don't know basically, what type of custody that you have or don't have. You don't have to talk to that new partner or the husband. You don't need a relationship with him. If your co-parent is blocking you from communicating with your child while at that parent's house, then you have a big problem. So at 11 years old, if you have to go through that new parent or that co-parent, or even the new parent, the new spouse, to get to your child, then that's an issue. And I would definitely bring that up in court.
What I did is I bought him an Apple Watch so I can talk to him myself. So there's literally no communication between me and her except for email.
And they don't block you from talking to your child then?
No, they don't care if I talk to him through the watch that I bought him.
But then as he ages and maybe you get a phone, so there's a little more privacy, right? So,
Yeah.
Well, if we can help you in any way, please reach out, okay?
Okay, so I was just wondering if I should try to, because my last kind of ditch resort is I just thought maybe I could text him directly, because I do have his phone number. I've never tried to contact him or talk to him, but
So,
I'm wondering if I
why-
should contact him directly and just see if he will at least talk to me or be
But
open.
Janet, why do you need to talk to him?
More so, I just want a good relationship, like we go to his football games and we're on opposite sides and we don't talk, no one says anything. And I just want it to be more, like I said, a positive environment, especially for my son. I don't like us being completely shut off to each other and acting like we hate each other, when again, I'm trying to make this a positive thing from all the negative.
Well, that's exactly what you should do, but it's difficult to force someone to be kind. We always promote parents getting along and the whole group getting along, especially at these events and especially at extracurricular activities or games. Children don't want to see tension or feel tension among their parents. That's the last thing that they want. So that's really admirable of you to really try to, have this decent, congenial relationship, or at least a little bit of, amicable relationship. But, sometimes we can't force it. And the more you try to force it and the more you try to push it, they just keep running the other way. So perhaps now you should just really be more focused on your son's well-being and doing everything that you possibly can to make sure your son feels comfortable and safe while in your care and while in his mother's home. And just let it go for now, because sometimes the more resistant we are to letting it go, the more it will build and the more tension will be created, not through any actions on your part, but just energetically. So try to just let it go for now, and then in time, things may just naturally kind of come together, because the more you insist, the more he's going to just run. So just let it alone, leave it alone, let some time go by. He's only 11, so you still have some more time. And just see how things unfold over the next 2 years, I would say.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the advice.
You're welcome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of our seminar. We're going to be sending you a survey, as well as this entire presentation, and some other answers to some common questions that some of our attendees have. And hopefully this serves of some value for you. And if there's any topic or idea that you might want us to talk about, please bring it to our attention. We also are going to be asking the survey, and I know the survey's been here in the chat. We're also going to be asking if there are days and times that are better suited for you. This is our 4th seminar, and we've had some really great success, and we're so excited to be presenting these opportunities for you, our valued friends and clients of the firm, to really help you along this way. It's a passion of ours to help you in the best way possible, because you and your children matter to us very, very deeply. And we're here for you, not just through this divorce, not just through this custody battle, not just through any of these issues you might be having, but really always. We're always here to help you live the best life you possibly can. So with that, if there's any time of day that is better for you, or any day of the week that's better in particular, please let us know in the survey. And we are going to try to accommodate that for the majority of you, is if you all want us, if we see that some of you, most of you want a specific time of day or day of the week, we really want to try to accommodate that. So thank you again. And I'm just so grateful to my team, Samantha and Alicia, for helping us and present this amazing seminar. And we hope it was of help to you. So thank you very much. We couldn't do this without each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day and rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.